Hello. Today is October 21st, 2017. Hope you're well. Today we're going to talk about depression. And let's just get started. If you don't suffer with depression yourself, you know someone who does. That's a very high probability because many of us do or have suffered with it. And something we want to say at the outset is if you happen to be one of those people who hasn't suffered with depression and you didn't go to school for it to really understand it, sometimes the less said the better. It's not something that you can understand intellectually. And even for those of us who maybe have friends or family members who suffer with it or who have suffered with it, and we have that experience, it still isn't the same thing as being the sufferer. Even if you're really close to the situation, it's as different as it's like telling a person who is a female, who was born female and who feels female, to imagine what it's like being a man, or vice versa. Just imagine for a moment, if you were a man, what would you do now? You see how I'm going, I don't know. I have no clue. And that's the way it is. You can't pretend to step into the role and then have solutions for somebody. And it's challenging when it's a friend or family member because we really want to help oftentimes. But again, sometimes the less said the better, because depression there's so much to it. There's so many layers to it. And probably most of us realize it's not just a bad mood. It's not just I'll just snap out of it. And most of us are smart enough to understand that's not the appropriate way of trying to help someone. Just do something, you see. So many of us, we already know not to do that say those kinds of things. Just a moment. So then what do we do? Because even if we know better than to, express certain, say certain things to a person, there's still that tendency, it seems, to pretend to have the answers, basically. Say, well, if it was me, I would do this and that and the other thing, or stuff like that. Or bring it down to something that's easily fixable. If the depressed person would just try or just do this or that or the other. So, what do we do then? Unfortunately, there's not a lot that any other person can do or say besides just expressing their love for the person when they're with them. To be supportive, to understand that this person is suffering. And even though we might not understand it, we can still be supportive and compassionate. And sometimes that's it. Usually that's all that you can do, because as I don't know. The bottom line is the person who is suffering with depression is in the driver's seat. And their life is not going to change until they are feeling that they're ready to move in a certain direction and do that. And it's hard to sit and watch as a person just keeps going around and around and around in the same cycle, and it just seems like to some people it might seem like a no-brainer. Okay, change your behavior, your life will get better. It's not that easy. Things that a person who's not suffering with oh, that was cute. Things that a person is not suffering with depression. I don't even know. I was gonna say now that little kid threw me off with that weird sound. It's just not. I was gonna say. The things that a person who doesn't suffer with depression just does day to day is like, okay, yeah, that's part of life. I get up, I do this, I do. Those seemingly easy things are overwhelming and monumental, like huge things to be able to accomplish. Because everything we do takes energy. And when you're suffering with depression, a lot of your energy is bound up in that. And just to crawl out of bed in the morning, oh Lord, just to imagine walking into another room and doing anything. It's like you're telling any other person, yeah, okay, so yeah, the thing you have to do today, yeah, it's 25 miles away. You need to walk there. You better get started right now because it's going to take you a while. It's that monumental. So we just have to accept that. Even if we don't understand it, just accept that it's that difficult just to function. And there I go saying but sorry, it's a word whisker I use. Doesn't look like it's gonna stop anytime soon. I apologize. It's just the way it is. And the other thing is, a depressed person doesn't seem to care the effect that they're having on other people and their lives. Like, you don't even care. You're screwing your shit up, and look, it's affecting my life and making my life hard. What's up with that? Well, guess what? It all just goes back to that. Hey, if I don't care enough to get out of bed and take a shower, even though I stink like all get out, don't think I'm going to care about you and whatever you're talking about. You see? So, yeah, maybe the person is cramping your style a little bit even. Maybe they're not making your life really, really, really hard, but it's just like, ugh, you're kind of in my way now with all of this blah, blah, blah. Just get over it and move on. That would make my life easier if you would just get out of bed and be a normal person. You see? Really? So, screw you and your suffering, whatever you're going through. That's what it comes out as. And that's another thing, too, is how often does someone say something to us and we misinterpret what they're saying? Not even in a bad or a good way, in any way. Miscommunication, all right? Well, I don't know if this is true across the board for all people who have suffered or are suffering with depression, but for my particular experience with it, everything gets misinterpreted. Because the filter that I was wearing was, I suck, life sucks, I'm a waste of space, and that's about it. And so anything you say to me is going to go through that filter. No matter what your intentions are, what you're trying to communicate or say to me, you know, as long as I'm feeling like life is just one big ball of shit, whatever you say has to go through that. And I'm not going to, you know, a person in that, you know, coming from that perspective is not going to hear what you're saying the way you're intending a lot of times. So, and that's another reason why we go back to what we said earlier of, you know, sometimes the most that we can do is be supportive and loving, compassionate with a person and not the things that we're saying or doing. You see, because everything, and I'm only speaking from my perspective here, okay? So this isn't going to be every single person who's had depression, but just everything gets skewed. Everything, nothing comes out the way it's intended, or things just have to go through that filter that kind of jacks it all up. You see? But even those of us who don't suffer with depression, we have experienced miscommunication, misunderstandings with others, and we really, really are convinced, wow, that person must have meant this or that. And you talk to them, they're like, yeah, no, that's not what I was saying at all. And that's not even when you're having all of that other stuff going on inside. It's just, you know, two people having a conversation. So you can kind of understand that. So we've talked to those of you who have not or are not suffering with depression, and we're just going to say a few words now to those who are. We live in a fucked up world. And it's going to get better. I really believe that. Things are going to get better, but many of us are very sensitive. Whoops, I tripped. Very, very sensitive. We feel so much. So, you know, maybe that's part of why you suffer. You know, we feel deeply. Many of us feel deeply, and that means feeling the suffering that's going on around us, as well as whatever, you know, our personal situation happens to be. So don't judge yourself harshly. Okay? Because being sensitive is a good thing. It's not just a bad thing. It's not just what we just spoke of. Being a highly sensitive person means that one day, because you're going through this, you're going to come out stronger, and you're going to be able to be there for others, because you will understand it. You'll understand things that people who don't have that kind of sensitivity, and I know people like this, who don't have the kind of sensitivity and kind of wish they did, because when people come to them and they're feeling down, they're just like, I hope you feel better, you see. So it is an asset. It's good to be able to relate to others so that we can lift them up as well. But anyway, kind of fast forwarded on that. When other people are telling you to straighten up your act and all these things, and it just kind of feels like they're judging you harshly, just to remember, people who haven't gone through this don't understand. And a lot of what people say is just in ignorance. You're not trying to be cruel, usually, or mean-spirited, or cut you down, but oftentimes the things that people are saying to us are the things that they're saying to themselves. So just remember that. That's a huge thing.
It's an old warehouse.
Some people, when they're feeling this kind of out of sorts or whatever, the language that they use toward themselves to get themselves motivated is probably what they're going to be saying to you. So don't take it personally like that, like it's just at you. And just feel what you feel. When you're feeling shitty, acknowledge that. That's important. Many people sweep things under the rug, that they don't want to deal with certain feelings and stuff, especially nowadays. That's part of being a human, is feeling. And, people act like it's some kind of a plague to actually have feelings and they don't deal with their feelings. And so maybe they'll ask you to be the same way, like, just get over that and move on or whatever. Don't feel it. But no, acknowledge your feelings. Always acknowledge your feelings. But the trick is not to let it pull you so far down into the darkness that you start believing there is no such thing as light. There is no such thing as relief. So we're going to have to develop this more in another recording, because this is getting long. But and of course, that there are many millions of people on this planet right now that are feeling similar feelings to what you're going through. And you are not alone. Physically, you are alone. Like if you're in your room right now and there's no other person physically there with you. But in another sense, you're not alone, because there are many of you who are in your room alone right now, or wherever you are, alone, and not in the presence of other people right now. Anyway, as always, we want to wish you much love and strength. And that's all right now. Bye-bye.